Today on Locked On Red Wings, can Lucas Raymond hit 90 points? We're going to continue player previews with Lucas Raymond, Jeff Petry, and Tyler Motte.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's also the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And on today's episode, we are going to continue player previews. Headliner today is, of course, Lucas Raymond, the second of the three RFAs that still do not have contracts, but we'll get to Giannis and Bergeron much later, I'm sure. On today's episode, we'll talk about Raymond, Tyler Motte, and Jeff Petry in these previews. But before I get to any of that, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, those sports have stopped sporting like we wanted them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. You know what's funny is I'm reading that on the day that preseason starts for the NFL. So the sports are starting to sport again, which is always exciting.
Right around the corner, man.
Right around the corner. Also, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Scotty, happy Friday. We made it through our first 3-episode week officially. And we're now neck deep in the player previews. And today we're going to talk about the breakout star of the Red Wings from last season, and that was Lucas Raymond. He scored 31 goals, 42 assists for 72 points in 82 games played. He's due for a new contract. He'll get a new contract because he's an RFA. He's going to get paid. It's either going to be a bridge deal or a long-term deal, but either way, he's going to get a significant pay increase. When it comes to Lucas Raymond, it's not what do we expect, it's how much more of a step forward should we expect this season.
Yeah, really, even if you zoom out even more, I think the question is just what is the ceiling, right? I think that's the biggest question, is how, not even in terms of just this season in a vacuum. I mean, he's still very, very young. Like, honestly, we saw flashes of greatness last season. And I think the new question is just how good can this dude be, right? Like, what is the true, like, ultimate ceiling for Lucas Raymond at the NHL level? One of the reasons I'm really excited for him specifically this upcoming year, aside from just being one of our better players and being a young, one of the faces of this team, is the fact that a lot of his success when he truly caught fire was when Larkin was absent, either with the family stuff he had or with the injury. And so the fact that now we have the potential, we have a clean slate, hopefully they both stay healthy. We have a potential for both of them to play in a full season together. And obviously that's been happening, but now it's kind of I don't know, it almost feels new again, right? Like when he first got promoted, it was like, oh, Lucas Raymond, hot prospect. We'll see what he can do on a line with Larkin. Now it's almost like that conversation has been reborn, where it's like, okay, we just saw Raymond catch fire and be probably the best player on this team for a solid few weeks there down the stretch. And now we get 82 games of both of them on the same line, healthy and ready to roll. I am unbelievably excited for not only just Lucas Raymond, but for the Red Wings season period because of that specifically. Seeing them with both of where they are at in their careers and within their games together is going to be, I think, has the potential to be really, really fun and could be one of the better lines we see in the NHL this year.
Yeah, I mean, from March 12th, as I try to pop up here on hockey reference, but sometimes it can be a little pain in the butt. From March 12th all the way to the end of the season, April 16th, so a little over a month, he had 21 points in 18 games. And obviously at that point, that was after Larkin had come back from the second injury, but like that was the stretch after their losing streak where they desperately needed wins the most. They needed wins the most at that point because they had, unfortunately, and we can talk about that while, because he did, like a lot of other players on the team, he did disappear a little bit on that losing streak. Nobody was performing well during that losing streak. But once they came out of that losing streak and that awful slump, no player carried this team more than Lucas Raymond to the cusp of the playoffs. 21 points in 18 games played is not a lot, is nothing to scoff at. And then not to mention that, like, remember that stretch? I just posted the highlight yesterday by the time people are hearing this on social media, like the hat trick and assist he had against Pittsburgh. They ultimately lost that game in overtime. That kept their season alive. And then, of course, the two games at the end of Montreal, or at the end of the season against Montreal, where he kept scoring goals. It was crazy. That final game, he only had an assist, but he had 2 goals in the game against day before in the game against Montreal. I think he finished the season on what was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game point streak. Like, he could not be stopped in the month of March and the month of April. And because he wanted to make the playoffs, he wasn't going to sit idly by. And unfortunately, the whole team kind of, crapped the bed, so to speak, when Larkin was out and they all got the flu and they went on that 7-game losing streak. But no one snapped back harder than Lucas Raymond. And I do really think that there is a serious question when talking about his ceiling. Like, he burst onto the scene for 73 points this year. That was more than we were expecting. We were expecting him to have a breakout year and get to like 65 points. Like, we thought that was going to be a great year after just 45 the year before, but he instead snapped back for 73, 28 more points than he had the year prior. That's absolute insanity, and I don't think that he's done growing either. 72 points, sorry, so 27 more points. He's not done growing either. Like, I do genuinely think that there's still another gear left to be unlocked because he's only 22 years old and he didn't turn 22 until late in the season. Like, right. There's still more growth left in, like, we were doing comparisons. He's had a hotter start to his career than the captain Dylan Larkin did. Right. And I don't think people understand that. Like, people understand how great Lucas Raymond has been, and obviously winger versus center, right? But, like, now that Lucas Raymond has discovered, like, oh, heck, I can score goals, I can shoot the puck and it'll go in the back of the net. And he's not just passing on shooting opportunities anymore. His points went through the roof, and I think he's not done. I genuinely think that he is a winger that could eclipse 90 points through the assists and goals because he is a natural playmaker. He was on fire last year, and as the team gets better and the more critical situations they play in, he is going to continue to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, I like how he's eclipsing 90 points through assists and goals. That's a good way to do to get points in the NHL, I think. I think. Wow, you didn't even laugh at that. That was. I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, I thought you were being serious in that the point distribution.
Oh no,
was nice.
I wasn't at all.
You're making a crack about
how you said. Yeah, it's fine. I do. I am
that's
really.
How I meant it.
I do think that it's. I agree with you, and I do think that. Him for this upcoming season is, as you said, and as I made fun of, like he can affect the game in a lot of different ways. It's not just a guy that's going to rack up points one way or another. And again, we saw that when Larkin was out this season. I'm so excited for the two of them to be on the ice together. I know I keep kind of lumping them into the same conversation there, but I really do think that just seeing a full season out of both of them really excites the heck out of me. And I agree with you. I think that 90 is not like completely out of the question. That's not what I would put money on, right? Like I don't think I'd expect that. I don't think that's the bar. But if we're talking about ceiling, I think that is something that, if the 80th percentile outcome occurs, it could be something around there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, realistically, I think he could get into 80. I think that's a realistic expectation.
If we have 2 point a game players on a line together, like I'm over the moon, brother. Yeah.
Right. But I also think that, like, with his potential and the position that he plays and how he plays it, that 90 as a ceiling is very possible as well. Like, I don't know if he ever breaks 100 points because that's so incredibly hard to do, and I think it'd be unfair to loft that expectation onto
let's
him.
get a point a game before we start
Right.
throwing 100 out there. Yeah.
But 90, I think, is attainable for somebody like that who has had a great of a season as they did, because he's only going to keep getting better. Like, again, he's only 22, and he didn't turn 22 until late in the season.
Right.
Like, he's not even in his quote-unquote prime yet. Like, that's what blows my mind.
Really not even close. I mean, if he has a normal, progression of a career, yeah.
Like, what's prime in the NHL? Like 24 to 32?
Yeah, I was going to say 25 to 31, 32, yeah.
Right. So I'm just excited as hell because, again, and when you talk about his role, of course you keep lumping him and Larkin together, but like that makes sense. They have great chemistry. He's gonna play on the top line as the right wing. I don't think that there is a possibility they move him to his off wing just because off wings tend to be better scorers. But he's been playing at the right side his entire career so far. I feel like your right wings are going to be he and Kane, and then Tarasenko gets bumped to the left, and he's going to get
Vlad, just because like the other guys are either longer term pieces of the puzzle or Patrick Kane. So like I feel like, you know what I mean? I feel like that kind of leads Vlad as just like the odd man out where he's neither of those things.
Well, and then power play, right? He's going to be PP1, whether it be, as net front or on the bumper.
The other thing. I know we got to get to a break here, but like he stepped in when Larkin was out and was bumper on power play 1 and did fantastic. He was net front on power play 1 and was fantastic at one point. Like he can do and be a dynamic player in so many different areas on the ice. And we really saw that, especially in the second half of this last season.
I mean, imagine if he comes back this training camp, like even stronger. Like he weighed in at 183 for 5'10" this last year, which is pretty solid for his height. If he comes back, he's like 190, which is really hard to attain.
Cabrera, man. Every year,
again, I don't want to put.
We're just going to hear about how Raymond's in the best shape of his life.
Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about Tyler Motte and what his role on this team is going to be. We'll preview him. Stay tuned for that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's start talking about Tyler Motte, new addition to the Detroit Red Wings. This 5'10" winger, 192 pounds. He's on a cap hit of just $800,000 on a 1-year deal. He is, simply put, a PK specialist. I think the best way to phrase this is not what to expect from his game, because that's been pretty well detailed by us as a new acquisition, but rather, do we think he has a shot at being an everyday player in this Red Wings lineup?
Yeah, absolutely. This is very similar to kind of how we discussed Christian Fischer this time last year, right? Where it was like, it's a PK specialist. He's probably not going to produce too much. He might be the 12th forward, whatever. And then we turn around in December and we go, oh, wow, he's been really valuable down in that third and fourth line kind of defensive PK role. I think that there's a route for him to absolutely do that. And I think, as we've talked about a lot already this summer, one of the reasons for that is just because this team is trying to acquire players that better fit the identity of what the coaching staff system is supposed to be. And I think that he is a player that you really highlight when you want to really highlight that point is just somebody that is going to come in. He's not going to produce too much offensively. He's going to be really solid on the defensive side of the ice. His deployments are probably going to be a lot of, in the Red Wings zone type of stuff. And that's fantastic to have that down in your lineup, right? We talk about it on the blue line so often because those are defensemen, but there's something to be said for having a line on your forwards as well that you're very comfortable throwing out there in the defensive zone. That's not just Larkin's line, right? Like having that in your back pocket, especially if there's going to be a line with Kane and Vlad on it and Tarasenko on it, you definitely want at least one other line outside of just Larkin's that you feel comfortable throwing out there in the defensive zone. And I think we have Rasmussen and Fisher and Kopp, right? Like that line was one that they felt comfortable doing that with last year. But I think Motte just gives them a little bit more flexibility with the deployments this season. He's not going to produce very many points, if any, just because that's the type of player that he is. But if he can be sound defensively down in the lineup card, there's a lot of value in that. And I absolutely think he has a chance to, by the end of the season, we look up and he's played, 60 plus games.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Motte is going to be exactly what you just described. I mean, he got the bulk majority of his zone deployments last year in the defensive zone with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He played 40% offensive zone deployments, which, of course, if you flip that, 60% of his deployments came in the defensive zone, which is how he's going to probably be used with the Detroit Red Wings. He played just 69 games last year with the Tampa Bay Lightning, only had 9 points. So, really, you're not expecting almost any offense out of him. You strictly signed him to make your defense better and make your penalty kill better. And we know already we had a shutdown line with Kopp and Fisher and Rasmussen that had a lot of good success last year for stretches. Of course, every line goes through slumps and they got broken up for a little bit. But I think Tyler Motte's probably going to replace one of those players on that shutdown line. And then that shutdown line is going to continue to see a lot of defensive zone. I would think Rasmussen, if anybody.
That was what I was going to say too, yeah.
Because, Christian Fisher and Michael Rasmussen both can be centers, but Andrew Kopp is a center. So I think that Andrew Kopp is going to remain the center of that shutdown line. And it's going to probably be Fisher and Motte, I would imagine, opening up Rasmussen to play a little bit more of a varied role.
If you're a defensive sicko, like that's a fun line, right? Like that line is going to produce nothing offensively, but that is, as we've both talked about now, that's a line that you really feel comfortable throwing out there in your own zone and are confident they're going to play really good defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that having that as a line you can throw out there. Let's be honest, they're not going to go out there in the defensive zone if like Nikita Kucherov's line is out there or Connor McDavid. Like we're not doing that. They're not that good defensively that they can outperform Connor McDavid. But against your third, your fourth, and your second line, now you have an opportunity to put a defensive line out there that can get the puck out into the offensive zone and set up for your better lines. Like that kind of defensive responsibility, and not like the ability to win the puck battles along the boards and be involved in the defensive zone is something they missed so much. But at the same time, like, will he be part of the everyday lineup? I think he will be based on the roster construction of this team right now. Because as it stands right now, they have, again, we've said it before, 12 forwards, 8 defense, 3 goalies. That is 23 players. So they could run 11-7 and sit somebody on a daily basis, and that's going to solely depend on, matchup. But with just 12 people, I think more often than not, you're going to see him in the lineup, and I'm fine with that. I really genuinely am. He's going to play probably about 10 minutes a night, if not less, just strictly on those defensive zone deployments. And I think that is perfectly fine based on the fact that you're paying him $800,000 a year. He's going to have very niche usage, and he's going to be good at that niche usage. So Tyler Motte is kind of like this conversation we have with like Joe Veleno. He is what he is, and that is perfectly okay.
For sure. Yeah. And as we talked about when we brought him in, I think he went like 50% almost exactly from the faceoff circle. Very small sample size there. I think he had less than 200 total faceoffs taken. Larkin will lose 600 this year nonetheless, like total just faceoffs taken. So very small sample size. He's obviously not going to be in there often. That's going to be if he's on a line with Kopp, that's going to be Kopp's job. But again, just any way that you can alleviate the weight off of some of the other players' shoulders, whether it's that way, whether it's playing defense, whether it's being on a line that you can deploy your own zone, et cetera, any way to give you a little bit more lineup card flexibility is two thumbs up from me. And that's something that last year, especially down the stretch, this team really struggled with. It was like everyone was very pigeonholed in their roles because they were the only ones that could do their roles. And you had zero flexibility up and down the lineup card. And I think while Motte is, again, I'm not trying to like oversell what he is. He's going to maybe get single-digit points this year. But I think that he's a guy you bring in to try to provide a little bit more flexibility in your lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like the reverse Gustafsson in this situation.
Right.
Gustafsson is going to be a sheltered defenseman who specializes in power play, and Tyler Motte is going to be a sheltered forward who specializes in penalty kill. It's the reverse situation. Like, you don't want to overstate the importance of this player, but based on what you're paying them and the role they're going to play, they're going to be pretty good for this hockey team.
Yeah.
With that being said, let's switch gears and talk about Jeff Petry when we return. So stay tuned to
Locked On.
Yes, sir. Let's stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. I love sports, and I love them so much that I don't want them to stop. Well, good news, they're starting up again. We had preseason football on television on Thursday night, and we're recording this before that starts, so I don't know the result. I'm hoping the Lions win. If not, who cares? It's preseason. But still, all is fun, and FanDuel helps the fun keep on going. FanDuel is hooking up customers all summer long with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Segment, Scotty, I saw that.
Oh, man, I was so close. I couldn't find it. They move a little bit, and that one switched up on me. I'm sorry.
Everyone on YouTube
I know.
saw that, man.
I know, man. It's embarrassing stuff, but I'll be better.
Segment 3 here, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Jeff Petry, Scotty. Just a quick little, give you the little preview before we start talking about him. He's on the final year of a contract that pays him $6.25 million. Of course, the Red Wings aren't paying that much, as this has got double retention on it, and the Red Wings are only paying him, I think, like $2.2 million themselves. This last year with the Detroit Red Wings, he had 24 points in 73 games played. He is a hot-button topic with the Detroit Red Wings, and he will probably continue to be so, as right now you are still left with no better options on the right side of the second pair. Scotty, does Jeff Petry have any gas left in the tank?
He better, brother. He better.
We all are hoping so.
Yeah, man. Like if he doesn't, we are in for a heck of a season in terms of how this blue line looks. I don't want to overstate Jeff Petry's importance either, but there is really a black hole next to Edvinsson, assuming he gets second pair there. And there's no obvious candidate to fill it. So we're going into the season under the assumption that it's going to be Jeff Petry. And if there isn't any gas in the tank, then this blue line is going to be in a blender real quick, and it's going to crumble real quick, no matter how good Seider and Edvinsson play. So, we've already talked about the shortcomings of like Sherratt and how he's probably not ideally your top pair, counterpart to Mo. I think it's pretty easy to regurgitate that conversation, but maybe even more dramatically when it comes to Petry at the current state of his career. He's being paid by like half the NHL at this point, so it's not an incredibly high cap hit or anything. It's not a conversation of, is he worth what he's getting paid? Like when you fraction it down into what everybody's divvying up and what he's end up paying by the Wings. Like, I guess it's fine. It's role. It really comes down to that. I am very concerned. I'm very concerned that Jeff Petry is going to possibly take. Look, he doesn't even have to take a huge step back. If he even takes half a step back from what he was last season, that's not going to be awesome. And I think that there's a very real possibility and a very real world where the Wings look around in, American Thanksgiving or around Christmas and go, oh my goodness, who the heck is going to play next to Edvinsson the rest of the way? Because we've tried 4 different people and none of them are working. And I think best case scenario is he's just similar enough to what he was last year, where he's passable on the second pair. He's going to make you upset. He's not going to be great. It's not going to be some awesome product, but it's going to be playable. And it almost sounds like harsh to be like best case scenario is playable, but like that's kind of where I'm at with him.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at too. And we talked about this at length, right? Before free agency and now like after free agency as well. The second pair right side D is the biggest hole on this team's roster right now. And so Jeff Petry is being forced to fill it and being put into deployments that he probably at this point in his career isn't capable of doing anymore. And that's not his fault, but it is his burden to carry.
Right.
And so he gets, I think, a little bit of a bad rap. He's a very competent defenseman, and in his prime was great. But very good. Great's, I don't want to, great's a pretty hyperbolic word.
He was really good.
He was really good. He was a top pair defenseman in his prime.
Yeah.
He was very good. But Jeff Petry these days isn't capable of carrying that workload. I thought last year he was over-deployed, which caused fans to hate him and think he was useless. And it's like, guys, if you don't put Edvinsson on the second pair, who are you putting there? Because a lot of people, I felt, didn't realize that you didn't have any other options. So he became the scapegoat because of a lack of depth, which isn't his fault. So this is going to be a situation again where he is, if he can, the second pair will be better, in my opinion, if he can just stay as good as he was, because by proxy, he's going to be paired up with Simon Edvinsson, who we expect to be very good in that role. So basically, my preview for Jeff Petry is, brother, I respect the heck out of you, and I want you to play really well every night. I think you'd be better off at this point in your NHL career as a third-pair defenseman. I think you'd thrive in that role, but you're going to have to play second pair, and I really hope that you can muster out another 82-game season in that role, barring a trade to fill in that spot. But with the defensemen they have on the roster, there's not a roster spot right now. So barring a trade that would move bodies off of the roster, who do you want in that role, right? Like Albert Johansson, maybe, but like everyone is projecting out. Right. Ourselves included are projecting Albert. Right. Are projecting Albert Johansson as a 6th or 7th D-man in the NHL, which is fine. That's not a slight. You still need those guys, and he's going to be a quality NHL player just in a role like that. Gustafsson, we've talked about his entire career. He's been a sheltered offensive defenseman who gets specialized power play minutes. Like, that's his role. So he's not going to get second pair minutes on this team. Justin Holl, don't come to me talking about plus minus. I'm going to slap you upside the head. He only played 38 games last year for a reason, and it's because he was bad. And so, like Jeff Petry, I'm just asking you, be as good as you were last year, and that second pair will be better by proxy.
I agree.
Like, that's less of a preview and more of a plea, but...
Right, yeah, we're both kind of just like, please do that. I mean, who knows, right? Like, age is a hard thing to predict. Some people fall off at 33. Some people fall off at 40. Who knows? That's only time will tell on that. It's right. Just if you can hold it together for one more season and just be, and again, like it wasn't even a great product last year. Like it's not like it was. His production was stellar last season, certainly. And a lot of people have plenty of frustrations with Jeff Petry, and I get it. But there's, like we've said now multiple times, there's no one else to put there, man. Like
to just comment on that too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but remember those 16 games where Simon Edvinsson played at the end of the season? Well, actually, it was probably like 14 at the end of the season because he had a short stint earlier in the year. But my point being, like, that pair looked better. Now, granted, I understand they got slightly easier deployments after Sherratt bumped up and Simon Edvinsson got called up. But, like, Edvinsson and Petry looked like they had good chemistry together. Like, they were a better pair than Sherratt and Petry were, and we talked about that. So, like, not only do I think that the pair will be better by proxy because Edvinson's up, but I think that we saw inklings of maybe better chemistry between that pair, and that goes a long way too. Remember when Wallman worked his way up to the top pair 2 seasons ago now, and he and Sider had immaculate chemistry. Like, chemistry goes a long way to making pairs a lot better. Being able to know what your partner is thinking goes a long way. I still think Jeff Petry at this point in his career is overdeployed as a second pair defenseman, and that's not a slight against him. I think he's a quality defenseman and would be good on the third pair at this point in his career, but he's going to have to be the second pair defenseman, and I just pray that he and Edvinsson have good chemistry, and he can, at the very least, not take a step back, and maybe that second pair will be better because of that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like I said, it's not so much a projection, more of a plea.
Absolutely.
I just think he got such a raw deal from fans because it's not like he's still the player on the ice that has to play those games, and that I get that. Like, you're still being paid to play hockey, but just to see the hate that he got, and from us sometimes too. Like, there were times where we were ragging on him. I remember one
I hate to break it to you. Crystal ball here. It's going to happen again too.
Right. Like, we were ragging on him at points, and we're probably going to do it again this season. Like, when he has bad games, we'll call out bad games, but like, what? Like, he shouldn't be in that role. But
yeah.
Anyways, Scotty, any final thoughts?
I don't think so, man. We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back on Monday with more player previews, so stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.